afternoon, my friends. This is Paul. It seems like there was a pretty positive response toward the video I made a couple of weeks ago about why I think I can't talk today. Why I think people constantly mistype what Myers-Briggs type I am. And so I thought I could make an unofficial part 2 of that video by searching through the huge array of comments I've gotten both on my videos and on videos I've done on other folks' channels and see what they have to say about what type they think I am. And spoiler alert, the functions are all over the place. So you can make up your own minds on what the common consensus is. Before I get into the I think Paul's a different type, I want to find the one comment that I got. Well, I had a couple, but this is one where he literally shared his thought process as to why he thought I was an ISTJ. So I'll read that first so that you can see the in favor, and then you'll see all the negative ones later. It's a bit of a long one, so you might want to grab your popcorn. So he starts out by saying, "You are an obvious introvert. A common misconception is that introverts don't have social skills. The difference between introverts and extroverts is that introverts recharge by being alone and like to introspect, whilst extroverts actually feel drained by being alone and avoid introspection, generally speaking. IXXX. Your sensing is evident. I don't need to go into that. You mentioned IXFP, ISFJ, ESTJ, ISXX. That would leave ISFP, ISFJ, ISTP, ISTJ. You don't seem to value SE or NI. You don't seem like a single decider or base your entire identity on TI or FI, as is common by those types. Moreover, TE and FE don't seem to be what stress you out or what you resort to using when stressed out for the most part, thus not your inferior function. That leaves ISFJ and ISTJ. ISFJ have TE blind spot and ISTJ has FE blind spot. TE blind spot comes off as a reluctancy to be direct. FE blind spot comes off as a reluctancy to be inauthentic to please others. We already talked about our similar experience with FE since we share FE blind spot, so I can see it in you since I see it in me. INTJ and ISTJ both have FE blind spot. Moreover, ISTJ has TI critic. I don't really know what that term means. Thus, it comes out in critiquing the logical consistency of yourself and others. However, an ISFJ also has TI, but since they value FE over it, they simply are not likely to point this out. You also mentioned how you didn't understand how people can lose their rational thought when sad, which points to you being a thinker even more. To make the case even more clear, an ISFJ has FI critic. Thus, they make sure that others are being moral and themselves. They worry about if they are a good person, since it is in their critic spot they critique themselves and others. Your FI is childish, and you use it to relieve stress. Tertiary position is the eternal child, and cognitive looping is done to relieve stress, SIFI, whereas the grip is succumbing to stress, NE. I am 100% certain you are an ISTJ, but that's my NI coming to a conclusion. He's an INTJ. I forgot to mention that. And my inferior SE doing its best to explain I think he said explain twice, concretely what I sense intuitively. It's hard to explain because, like I mentioned, it's an intuitive understanding with pictures and metaphors in my mind. So that's a pretty thorough explanation. I'm not sure if I get every single explanation, as I don't really know what critic means in that context, but let us see what some of the naysayers have to say. So this commenter had the running theory, and most of it was sent in an email, not on a comment, that he thought I was an ISFJ. And he had a lot of observations, but most of them were based on timestamps of a particular video I did, so I thought that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to you guys. So I'll just give one example and then just go from there. He quoted how I said in that video, "I would consider the practical benefits, TI, and how much it lines with my past, SI. Very much sounds like SITI. Of course, then we later did an interview together, and he came to the conclusion that I was an EXTJ. So going from introverted thinking in the third to extroverted thinking in the dominant. That's quite a leap if you ask me, but that's not really a comment, so I guess it doesn't count here. We were going to make a part 2 to explain how he came to that conclusion, but his email doesn't seem to be working. So hopefully he sees this and says, yeah, I'll get to work on that. Another person responded, oh, to clarify, this person eventually did retract this claim and come to the conclusion that I was ISTJ based on an insensitive remark I made to my brother about the possibility of his wife miscarrying. But here was his initial response. Hey Paul, I've watched a bit of your videos and I have a question. Do you think it's possible that you're actually an INFP? INFPs and ISTJs have the same functions in the same positive and negative order, just a different pattern, as I'm sure you're aware of. Yes, I am. I say it because you seem much more informative and outcome-based than direct and journey-based. What I mean is you speak eloquently and poetically, as well as you seem to go through conclusions a lot. An ISTJ is typically more direct and focuses more on details that relate to how they got to a conclusion as opposed to the actual conclusion. I'm not 100% sure what he means by that, but I would say the speaking poetically is mainly a result of me being an author. And so I just have that natural wordsmith pattern. I just realized that I forgot to comb and brush my hair before making this, so let's do a past to future comparison, shall we? Alright guys, I'm back. Let me know in the comment section if that actually made a difference, because I'd like to think that I want to try to please you guys a little bit when it comes to your comments about my appearance. So moving on, we have, oh gosh, this one's a bit of a long one. So this commenter replies, I would say from my perspective of you, you seem more like an INFJ personality type because you are very passionate about everything you talk about, from your beliefs. Personally, I think that's more of an introverted feeling thing, but let's continue. And also how you help people and how you have empathy for others' feelings rather they need someone to talk to or listen to them. You don't seem emotionless to me. You seem more like rational and logical, which doesn't mean you're emotionless, just means you are more thinking on your emotions rather than being irrational. You are very rational. Simply put, we all have emotions, but we show them in different ways, along with dealing our emotions in different ways, rather negative or positive. Grammatical inconsistency aside, I do think that that's a bit of a stretch when you word it like that to say INFJ, but still, like INFJ, really? That was my lowest possibility on the whole mistype investigator video. So let's see this next one that I'm pretty sure the same commenter wrote in another video. If I had to guess one type, I think you're an ISTJ, but I went through thinking you were an ISTJ, ISFJ, ESTJ, and ISFP, which I think you did as well, funnily enough. Later in the same comment, he responds, it's possible you could be an INFJ, since you mentioned how ISTJs could act like any type once they learn, but maybe an INFJ could learn to be an ISTJ? I think you're an ISTJ, but I don't know. And then the same commenter says again, it's possible you could be an ENFJ, which still isn't too far off from an INFP being the inverse of each other. Okay, so he seems to be quite the type jumper, which is okay. I mean, some intuitive types like to entertain possibilities. This person is the shortest commenter yet, just says, Paul is an ENFJ. Okay, not gonna elaborate on that. Okay. Now, on the opposite end of the function stack, one of the most recent comments I've gotten about my type is, I am 98% sure Paul is an ENFP. Confusing yourself with your duality type is fairly common. He is often spouting new possibilities. He changes the subject quite a bit and is pretty informative. Now, there was one more video I can think of where I had a couple of people mistyping me, but that video has since been deleted from YouTube. However, to my memory, One of those comments said that I was probably an INTJ or an INTP because I came across as rude and kept cutting off the other person in the video. So that was more along the lines of, you are rude, therefore you are not an ISTJ, because ISTJs are more sensitive to other people's feelings. So what do you guys think? Do you think these people are totally on the mark, or do you think that the fact that there are so many wildly different cognitive functions means that they're totally off? Now, to put this into perspective, none of these people have actually met me in person, and none of these people have seen me in a context that isn't a YouTube video. So well, okay, the person who thought I was an ISFJ did, and then he changed his mind. But everyone else has only gone off of my YouTube videos. And I'm sure you all know that I wouldn't say I put on a persona, but like being in front of the camera reminds me of my public speaking days. So I guess I just have this natural communication style in front of a camera that just isn't as natural to other types. So I don't know. I don't know how people come to these conclusions with limited information. So if you've met me before, let me know in the comments what you think. If you haven't met me before, then I would be very curious as to your thoughts on how you think I could be presenting as something, but that the camera draws it out. Either way, let me know in the comments. I'm saying that too much. And I would also like to give an epic shout out to Matthew Rakowski, and also shout out my other patrons, Splatcat and Sploon Ghost. If you want to join my Patreon to help support my channel while I'm in the midst of a really bizarre financial situation, I will leave that in the description. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.